The World Cup does not reward the best team in the world. It never has. And every 4 years, football pretends to forget that. We build rankings. We calculate squad values. We obsess over form, possession stats, expected goals, pressing efficiency, tactical flexibility, and manager reputation. We convince ourselves that football is becoming predictable. That data is finally catching up with chaos. But then the tournament begins, and everything collapses. Because somewhere between the opening whistle and the final penalty kick, the World Cup reveals its truth. Winning is not about being the best team. It is about being the most complete system of survival under pressure. Not perfection, not dominance, survival. And history proves this again and again. In 2010, Spain arrived with what many still consider the greatest midfield structure ever assembled. Barcelona's passing machine extended into an entire national identity. They controlled games not with force, but with silence, ball possession so absolute that opponents were reduced to spectators. In 2014, Germany arrived with a decade-long rebuild strategy. Youth development, tactical discipline, structural intelligence. They didn't just bring players, they brought a system designed to outlast football itself. In 2018, France arrived with raw athletic power fused with tactical maturity. Not the most beautiful team, not the most dominant possession side, but a squad built to strike, absorb, and survive every possible scenario. In 2022, Argentina arrived not as the strongest team on paper, but as a psychological force shaped around one final mission: to carry Lionel Messi to completion and to carry themselves through emotional collapse into collective belief. For champions, for completely different identities, and yet one shared pattern. None of them were simply the best team in the world before the tournament began. They were the best adapted system for World Cup chaos. So the question becomes unavoidable. What is the secret formula behind every World Cup winner? Is it squad quality? Is it tactical identity? Is it experience? Is it the manager? Or is it something deeper, something invisible, something that only reveals itself under pressure, in the final moments of exhaustion, when legs stop responding and decisions become instinct? Because if you look closely enough, every World Cup winner shares contradictions. Spain 2010 dominated possession, but nearly lost control against Switzerland in the group stage. Germany 2014 destroyed Brazil 7-1, but struggled against Algeria for 120 minutes. France 2018 had superstar depth, but almost collapsed against Argentina in a chaotic round of 16 battle. Argentina 2022 lost their first match to Saudi Arabia, a result that should have ended everything. Yet all four still lifted the trophy. This is not randomness. This is structure hidden inside chaos. And that structure is what this documentary will uncover. Because if you understand the pattern behind World Cup winners, you begin to see football differently. You stop asking who is the best team, and you start asking something far more dangerous. Which team is built to survive when everything breaks? Now, before we build the model, we must understand the stage itself. The World Cup is not a league. It is not a Champions League season. It is not a tactical laboratory where systems are tested over time. It is something far more brutal. It is a compressed reality distortion field where one mistake can end 4 years of preparation. One injury can destroy tactical identity. One penalty shootout can rewrite history. One moment of brilliance can erase 90 minutes of dominance. And unlike club football, there is no recovery phase. No second leg. No, we go again next week. Only elimination. This is why traditional football analysis fails at the World Cup. Because traditional analysis assumes stability. The World Cup is built on instability. And instability changes everything. A team that is 90 efficient tactically can still lose to a team that is 60 efficient, but 100 emotionally stable under pressure. A squad filled with superstars can collapse against a compact, disciplined unit that understands how to suffer. A dominant possession team can be eliminated by a counterattacking side that only needs 3 chances in 90 minutes. This is not theory. This is the World Cup's historical pattern. And it leads us to the first uncomfortable truth of this entire analysis. Winning the World Cup is less about maximizing strength and more about minimizing failure. Every champion has mastered this balance differently. Spain minimized defensive exposure through possession. Germany minimized chaos through structure. France minimized dependency through depth. Argentina minimized emotional collapse through collective belief. Different methods. Same outcome. Survival until the final match. But to truly understand this formula, we need to go deeper. We need to move beyond history and into structure. Because if there is a secret formula, it is not random. It is measurable. It exists across 6 core pillars: squad quality, manager quality, tactical identity, current form, depth, tournament experience. At first glance, this looks like standard football analysis, but it is not. Because in the World Cup, each of these pillars behaves differently than in club football. Squad quality is not about individual stars. It is about role compatibility under pressure. Manager quality is not about tactical brilliance. It is about adaptability when plans collapse. Tactical identity is not about dominance. It is about flexibility when opponents neutralize your system. And experience is not about age. It is about psychological resistance to elimination moments. These differences are what separate champions from contenders, and there we will decode step by step. But before we assign numbers, before we rank teams, before we simulate probabilities, we must understand one final truth. Every World Cup produces illusions. Every 4 years, certain teams look unstoppable in qualification. Certain squads look invincible on paper. Certain managers are labeled generational. And yet history shows us something brutal. Most favorites fail, not because they are weak, but because the World Cup does not reward pre-tournament strength. It rewards in-tournament adaptation. And adaptation cannot be fully measured until pressure arrives. This is why football's greatest contradiction exists. The team that looks perfect before the World Cup is rarely the team that survives it. So now we step forward, into the model, into the ranking system, into the structure that tries to quantify chaos. But remember this, every number we assign is only a prediction of stability, not a guarantee of survival. Because in the World Cup, football always has the final word. If the World Cup had a memory, it would not remember goals. It would remember collapses. Because every tournament begins with certainty and ends with revision. Before kickoff, analysts talk about favorites, systems, golden generations, and perfect squads. But the World Cup has spent a century proving one thing. Football history is not written by the strongest teams. It is written by the teams that survive the most chaos. To understand the secret formula behind World Cup winners, we must first understand what the tournament itself has become. Not what it was. What is now? A compressed battlefield of football evolution. The first World Cup in 1930 was not tactical football as we know it today. It was raw structure, physical dominance, and national pride expressed through chaos. Uruguay lifted the trophy at home, but even then, something fundamental was established. Home advantage matters more in the World Cup than in almost any other competition in sport. And that pattern has never fully disappeared. From 1930 to modern football, over 90 years of World Cup history reveal an uncomfortable consistency. Only a small number of nations actually dominate eras. Uruguay, Italy, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, France, Spain. That is not coincidence. That is structural monopoly over football evolution itself. Each era of football produces a tactical identity, and one or two nations adapt faster than the rest. In the 1950s, football was still transitioning from individual brilliance to organized structure. Brazil's rise was not just talent. It was improvisation turned into system. The 1958 and 1970 Brazilian teams did something revolutionary. They turned freedom into structure without killing creativity. That is the first major pattern of World Cup winners. They do not suppress talent. They organize it. And that distinction becomes crucial in later decades. Because the moment football becomes system-heavy, creativity becomes the difference between champions and almost champions. Then came the tactical revolution of Europe. The 1970s and 1980s saw the rise of total football, defensive organization, and pressing structures that would define modern football. The Netherlands revolutionized positional interchangeability, but never fully completed the cycle with a World Cup victory in that era. Germany, however, perfected a different identity. Not beauty, not chaos. Efficiency under pressure. By 1974, West Germany demonstrated something that would become a recurring theme. World Cup winners do not always dominate games. They dominate moments. That 1974 final against the Netherlands was not about possession superiority or attacking brilliance alone. It was about psychological control after conceding early. Germany absorbed pressure, adapted, and slowly suffocated momentum. This becomes a pattern we will see again and again. By the 1990s, football had entered a new era. Athleticism meets organization. Tactical systems became more rigid. Defensive structures became more compact. Space became more valuable than possession. Italy's 1990 team, Germany's consistency, and Brazil's 1994 pragmatic evolution showed a new truth. World Cup winners were becoming more efficient, less expressive. The 1994 Brazil team, often misunderstood, was not the free-flowing Brazil of the past. It was a controlled system built around Romário and Bebeto, but supported by defensive discipline and midfield balance. They won not by overwhelming opponents, but by reducing risk. And this is where the secret formula begins to sharpen. World Cup winners do not maximize attack. They minimize exposure. Then came 1998 and 2002, two tournaments that revealed the importance of squad depth. France 1998 introduced a new model. A team does not need one identity. It needs multiple identities. France could defend with authority, control midfield tempo, or transition rapidly through Zidane's creativity. Brazil 2002 refined the superstar model again, but with balance. Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Ronaldinho formed an attacking trio, but behind them was a structured system that protected them. This is another recurring pattern. World Cup winners often have at least one unstoppable phase in attack, but they are never dependent on alone. Now we enter the modern era. The 2006 to 2022 cycle is where football becomes fully analytical. Data becomes central. Possession metrics, pressing intensity, expected goals, defensive lines, all begin to define how teams are judged. But interestingly, World Cup outcomes do not fully align with data dominance. 2006, Italy won through defensive resilience and penalty shootout psychology. 2010, Spain dominated possession unlike any team in history, but still required narrow margins in knockout games. 2014, Germany reached peak structural efficiency, but still needed extra time, resilience, and adaptability against defensive blocks. 2018, France prioritized transition efficiency over possession dominance. 2022, Argentina combined emotional cohesion with tactical flexibility rather than statistical superiority. This leads to a critical conclusion. Modern World Cup winners are not the best statistical teams. They're the best contextual teams. Teams that adapt their identity based on opponent, match phase, and psychological pressure. Now let's look at how teams evolve before winning. Almost every World Cup champion shows a 4 to 8 year development arc before victory. Spain did not emerge in 2010 randomly. Their system was built from Barcelona's 2008 to 2012 dominant cycle. Germany's 2014 win was the result of a youth restructuring program started after early 2000s failures. France 2018 was the result of a golden generation built through elite academy systems and dual national talent integration. Argentina 2022 was the result of tactical reconstruction after years of instability post-2014. This reveals another hidden rule. World Cup winners are not created in one cycle. They are built over multiple failure cycles. Failure is not an exception in their journey. It is the foundation. Now we must address tournament structure itself, because it shapes winners more than we admit. The World Cup is a hybrid competition. Group stage, stability test. Round of 16 elimination pressure entry. Quarterfinals, psychological endurance. Semifinals, tactical exhaustion. Final emotional collapse, threshold. Each stage eliminates a different type of weakness. Group stage punishes inconsistency. Knockouts punish tactical rigidity. Semifinals punish squad depth limitations. Finals punish psychological fragility. So a team does not need to be best in all phases. It must be resistant in all phases. That is the real formula. Let's introduce one more critical historical truth. No World Cup winner since 1990 has been undefeated in every knockout match. Every champion has faced at least one moment where elimination was extremely close. This is not luck. This is structural inevitability. Because the World Cup is designed to test failure tolerance, not perfection. And the deeper a team goes, the more exposed its weaknesses become. Spain 2010 survived extra-time tension in multiple matches. Germany 2014 survived physical exhaustion and tactical breakdown phases. France 2018 survived Argentina's attacking chaos. Argentina 2022 survived penalties, comebacks, and emotional collapse moments. Every champion had to nearly lose to understand how to win. Now we arrive at the most important shift in football history. Modern World Cups are no longer won by systems alone. They are won by system adaptability psychology. A perfect system without adaptability fails. A talented squad without structure collapses. A disciplined team without emotional resilience breaks under pressure. So the question is no longer, who is the best team? It becomes, who can survive when their best system stops working? Because every system fails under World Cup pressure. Every pressing structure is bypassed. Every defensive line is broken. Every possession dominance is disrupted. And in that moment, only three things remain: decision-making, mental strength, and bench depth. This is why modern analysis must go beyond tactics. It must include emotional intelligence of teams. Because football at the World Cup is not just played. It is endured. And endurance is not visible in highlight reels. It is visible in how teams react when they concede first, how they respond after missing penalties, how they behave in 115th minute exhaustion, how they recover after tactical collapse. So now, as we transition toward the ranking model, one final insight must be locked in. Every World Cup winner is a compromise between four forces: technical quality, tactical structure, physical intensity, emotional stability. No team can maximize all four. So champions are not perfect teams. They are balanced contradictions. And understanding those contradictions is the only way to predict the next winner. Every World Cup cycle begins with the same illusion: that football can be predicted, that numbers can rank destiny, that squads can be sorted like equations and outcomes will obey logic. But history keeps breaking that illusion. Because if football were truly linear, the World Cup would not produce surprises. And yet it does, every single time. So before we rank teams, we must accept something uncomfortable. This system is not designed to predict perfection. It is designed to measure survival probability under chaos. And survival is the only currency that matters in a World Cup. To build a meaningful ranking model, we cannot rely on a single metric like squad value or FIFA ranking. Those are surface indicators. They describe strength in controlled environments. The World Cup is not controlled. It is volatile, compressed, emotionally unstable, and tactically adaptive. So we construct a multi-layer model based on 6 pillars: squad quality, manager quality, tactical identity, current form, depth, tournament experience. But each pillar must be redefined, not in club football terms, but in World Cup survival terms. Squad quality, not talent, but functional cohesion. On paper, squad quality is simple. You list the best players. You measure market value. You assess individual ability. But World Cup squad quality is not about stars. It is about role synchronization under pressure. A team with 11 world-class players can fail if roles overlap. A team with fewer stars can succeed if roles are perfectly defined. Fact: France 2018 had one of the highest squad market values in tournament history. Context: but their success was not driven by individual dominance alone. Analysis: it was driven by balance between defensive structure, midfield control, and transition speed. Contradiction: some star players had reduced roles compared to club level. Emotion: talent did not explode, it was disciplined. So squad quality is measured by positional balance, role clarity, versatility under pressure, substitution compatibility. A World Cup winning squad is not the most talented. It is the most coherent under breakdown situations. Score weighting 10 points. But points are earned not by stars, by structure. Manager quality, adaptability over ideology. In club football, managers are judged by identity. Possession managers, gegenpress managers, counterattack specialists. But in the World Cup, ideology often becomes a liability. Because no tactical system survives 7 consecutive knockout-level opponents without adjustment. Fact: Germany 2014 under Joachim Löw evolved their system mid-tournament. Context: early dominance shifted into pragmatic knockout adjustments. Analysis: tactical flexibility replaced ideological purity. Contradiction: pre-tournament identity was different from knockout identity. Emotion: survival required transformation. So manager quality is measured by in-game adaptation speed, tactical flexibility between matches, substitution intelligence, psychological leadership under pressure. The best World Cup managers are not system builders. They are system breakers and rebuilders. Score weighting 10 points. Tactical identity, strength in multiple states. This is where most teams fail, because tactical identity is often too rigid. Teams try to dominate through one style. Possession, low block, transition attack. But World Cup success requires multi-state tactical identity. Fact: Spain 2010 dominated possession, but still had to win matches through narrow margins. Context: opponents adapted defensively, forcing Spain into transitional struggles. Analysis: possession alone was insufficient. Defensive resilience mattered more than expected. Contradiction: dominance did not equal control of outcome. Emotion: control without penetration is illusion. So tactical identity is measured by ability to switch systems mid-game, ability to defend deep when needed, ability to attack directly when required, ability to survive without possession. Score weighting 10 points. The strongest teams are not fixed systems. They are adaptive tactical organisms. Current form, momentum under pressure. Form is often misunderstood. People look at win streaks. But World Cup form is not about winning matches. It is about performing under rising pressure curves. Fact: Argentina 2022 lost their opening match. Context: that loss increased psychological pressure for remaining group matches. Analysis: instead of collapsing, the team stabilized and improved structurally. Contradiction: early failure became long-term strength. Emotion: collapse was avoided through resilience, not dominance. So form is measured by performance against strong opponents, response after setbacks, consistency under tournament pressure, injury resistance during schedule compression. Score weighting 10 points. Form is not momentum. It is pressure adaptation curve. Depth, the survival engine. Depth is not about having good substitutes. It is about maintaining tactical identity when starters fail. Fact: France 2018 rotated players without losing structural integrity. Context: injuries and suspensions did not break system functionality. Analysis: replacement players maintained tactical shape. Contradiction: absence of stars did not reduce efficiency. Emotion: Systems survived individuals. Depth is measured by bench quality relative to starters, tactical interchangeability, injury replacement efficiency, squad fatigue resistance, score weighting 10 points. In modern World Cups, depth is not support. It is insurance against collapse. Tournament experience, psychological immunity. Experience is not just caps or age. It is exposure to elimination pressure. Fact: Germany's core group in 2014 had multiple deep tournament runs before victory. Context: previous semifinal and final experiences shaped mental stability. Analysis: pressure was familiar, not new. Contradiction: experience reduced emotional volatility. Emotion: pressure becomes predictable when survived before. Experience is measured by knockout stage history, penalty shootout exposure, captain leadership stability, previous tournament failures and recovery. Score weighting 10 points. Experience does not improve skill. It reduces fear. The full model, survival index. Now we combine all 6 pillars into one framework. Squad quality 10. Manager quality 10. Tactical identity 10. Form 10. Depth 10. Experience 10. Total 60-point survival index. But here is the key insight. Not all points are equal in importance during tournaments. Late-stage matches weight differently. Experience increases in semifinals and finals. Depth becomes critical in knockout fatigue phases. Tactical identity matters most against elite opposition. Form peaks in group-to-knockout transition. So the model is dynamic, not static. The contradiction inside the model. Here is the most important truth. A team can score 55-60 in this model and still not win a World Cup, because the final variable is not included in numbers. It is match-specific chaos resistance. Examples: red cards, penalties, refereeing variance, weather conditions, emocional collapse moments, individual brilliance spikes. These cannot be quantified, but they decide tournaments. So the model is not a prediction machine. It is a probability structure, and probability does not guarantee outcome. It only defines likelihood before chaos enters. Final insight before team rankings. Every World Cup winner in history has scored highly in at least 4 of these 6 categories. But no winner has ever been perfect in all 6. Because perfection does not survive pressure. Balance survives pressure. An imbalance creates vulnerability that forces adaptation. So when we move into team rankings, remember this. We are not ranking best teams. We are ranking best survival systems. And survival systems are not always the most beautiful. They're the most resistant to breaking. Now, the model stops being theoretical and becomes brutal. Because once we apply the survival index, a clear hierarchy emerges, not of popularity, but of structural resistance. At the top of modern World Cup football sit 4 nations that consistently meet the deepest survival conditions. France, Brazil, Argentina, England. Not because they are equal, but because they each dominate different survival dimensions. France, the complete survival machine. Squad, 1010. Manager, 910. Form, 810. Depth, 1010. Experience, 910. Tactical identity, 910. France does not play football like a philosophy. They play it like an emergency system. Every cycle produces the same truth. France can lose control of a match and still win it. That is not luck. That is structural insurance. Their tactical identity is dual-layered. Explosive transition attacking combined with compact defensive recovery blocks. The key players are not just stars. They're interchangeable components in a system designed to function even under injury collapse. While statistic, France reached back-to-back World Cup finals in 2018 and 2022, something no European nation had achieved in decades. But the contradiction is clear. They're not always emotionally stable in early phases of tournaments. And yet, they always arrive in the final phase alive. That is the only metric that matters. On paper, France is not perfect. But football is not played on paper. Brazil, the permanent expectation. Squad, 910. Manager, 710. Form, 810. Depth, 910. Experience, 1010. Tactical identity, 810. Brazil carries something no other nation carries. Expectation as pressure. Every World Cup, Brazil does not enter as a contender. They enter as a myth. Their tactical evolution has shifted away from pure artistry into structured attacking balance, with wide overloads and technical midfield control. But their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. Emotional expectation collapses under knockout pressure. While statistic, Brazil has never lost a World Cup final in regular time. But here is the contradiction. Their modern knockout exits often come not from tactical failure, but from psychological disruption in key moments. They're always capable of winning, but not always capable of surviving emotional compression. And in the World Cup, emotion is a weapon that can cut both ways. Argentina, the emotional system. Squad, 910. Manager, 910. Form, 910. Depth, 810. Experience, 1010. Tactical identity, 910. Argentina represents something unique in modern football, a team that transforms emotion into structure. They're no longer dependent on chaos. They have learned to organize it. Their system revolves around control phases built around midfield stability, defensive discipline, and sudden acceleration through creative leadership. While statistic, Argentina went from losing their opening match in 2022 to becoming World Cup champions. That has only been achieved a handful of times in history. The contradiction, they're at their strongest when under maximum emotional pressure. Where other teams break, Argentina's charpens. That is not tactical. That is psychological engineering. England, the structural paradox. Squad, 910. Manager, 810. Form, 810. Depth, 910. Experience, 710. Tactical identity, 810. England is statistically one of the strongest squads in modern football. Elite attackers. Elite midfield balance. Elite defensive structure. But World Cup history reveals a contradiction. Structure alone is not enough. England's challenge is not talent. It is knockout conversion efficiency under pressure. While statistic, England's last World Cup win came in 1966. That is not a tactical problem. That is a generational psychological barrier. And until that barrier is broken, England remains one of the strongest teams. That football refuses to fully trust in finals. Missed teams analysis. Now we step into the second tier. Teams are dangerous, but incomplete. Germany, tactical identity remains strong, but transitional instability and generational rebuild gaps weaken consistency. Portugal, elite individual talent, but over-reliance on key players creates system fragility. Netherlands, tactical intelligence high, but knockout psychological ceiling remains unproven in modern era. Italy, defensive structure elite, but attacking inconsistency limits modern tournament dominance. Belgium, golden generation peaked without converting into tournament-winning structure. Uruguay, defensive intensity high, but squad depth limits long tournament survival. Each of these teams shares the same flaw. They're dangerous in phases, but not complete across the entire tournament life cycle. Tactical contradictions. Modern football is built on contradictions that cannot coexist perfectly. Attack versus defense. Control versus directness. Experience versus physical peak. System versus individual brilliance. No World Cup winner resolves all contradictions. They manage them. Spain in 2010 controlled possession, but struggled with low block breaking efficiency. Germany in 2014 dominated structure, but still faced deep defensive survival tests. France balanced depth, but still depends on transition moments rather than sustained dominance. Argentina turned emotional volatility into structural fuel. The contradiction is simple. Perfect balance does not exist. Only controlled imbalance does. Final model prediction. After applying survival indexing across all 6 pillars. France 24, Brazil 64, Argentina 20, England 18, Germany 8, others 8. But this is not prediction. It is probability under ideal conditions. Because the World Cup never runs under ideal conditions. One injury changes everything. One red card changes everything. One penalty shootout deletes probability entirely. So this model does not predict winners. It identifies who survives chaos most often. Final verdict. The strongest team in the world is not the one with the best players. It is the one that breaks least under pressure. France remains the most complete survival structure. Brazil remains the most dangerous emotional force. Argentina remains the most psychologically adaptive system. England remains the most structurally unresolved paradox. But history always ends the same way. Not with the best team, not with the most talented squad, but with the team that survives the most versions of collapse. Because in the World Cup, every champion is simply the last team standing after football has tested everything it can destroy. And that leaves one final question. Not about tactics, not about statistics, but about destiny itself. When the chaos arrives and everything begins to break, which team will still recognize itself in the mirror?